there's been an effort made by me over the last at least year to 2 years to talk about thoughts, emotions, and how when the thoughts and the heart come together, that's the mind. We kind of put those things together. So let's understand that while you're correct, Rocky, that we have to deal with our thoughts, some of the verses, though, you're talking about have to do with our beliefs, which come from the mind. Okay, our beliefs is a combination of our thoughts and accepting them and putting emotion to them. And that's where, as a man thinketh, okay, or believes in his heart. It doesn't just say think, but thinks in his heart. So now we've turned it into a mind. That is what he is, right? We are as we believe. So if you believe you can or can't, you're right. Because you're not going to be able to do something you don't believe you can, and you're not going to be able, you understand, you only can do the things you believe you can. Original, medicine man, witch doctor, and all that kind of stuff, okay, the healers that were in different tribal communities, when you go back, far enough back, they did all kinds of who knows what they were doing, okay? But the intent of it, or the claim, was that it was going to make you well. And so when we have an industry that forms that's creating things to give you to help you be well, they thought it natural to call it pharmaceuticals or pharmacy, because there was a connection to this idea. Now, pharmakia is talking about the witchcraft level of this stuff, not just what's going on in medicines. But you need to go ahead and research to know what these medicines are trying to do. But if they've identified that certain plants or other types of things are helpful in certain maladies that you may have, that's just science, that's not pharmakia. All these people put out stuff against leaderships that's been bad in their lives, and naturally everybody's gonna think they're talking about me. Everybody puts out something about a spouse, naturally they're gonna think you're talking about your own spouse. You might not be, but that's the conclusion they're gonna go to. So please stop doing that. I don't know why I'm just venting. Well, vent to the ceiling or something in your own room with nobody around, or to me, or to your best friend, and leave it at that. All right, that's number one. Number two, all of you fail at this from time to time. Well, at least most of you probably. There's probably one or two that don't, and that would be like the unicorn. But when somebody comes to you and shares private information, that is never to come out of your mouth, ever. Amen. See, if I come to you and say, look, you need to keep this to yourself, you can't now bring it to your best friend and say you need to keep it to yourself. You have to understand that the Son, not the Father, the Son is everything, and everything that comes from him and comes forth from him came from the Father, right? So when he says only everything I do, everything I say, so since the Torah was given by Messiah, by the Son, all the interaction just about in the whole of Scripture that man interacts with the when it says Elohim, when it says Yahweh, that's the Son. Problem is we have Yeshua as one name, Yahweh is another name, and we think that's Father, Son. Not necessarily. Yahweh also can refer to the Father, because you actually have verses like in Genesis where it says Yahweh called down fire and brimstone from Yahweh in the heavens. Okay? So they have the same name, but when he put on the flesh suit, he took on a different name. And we see people's names change in Scripture on a regular basis. There's not a problem with that. My talking to you, wanting to get you to see that person the way I do. So now it's two of us on the same side against that person. Okay? And so that's when it becomes evil speech, because now you're causing harm to the other person, because now you've got another person seeing them in this bad way, which harms them. And by the way, you may be wrong completely, and now I've caused someone to think of that person as in a bad way when I was wrong about the whole thing anyway. And that happens often enough, that we get all mad about something and realize later we had it completely wrong and we were the ones who were wrong. But we got so upset because we got triggered. So the idea of venting is literally a vent, like you open a vent and the steam comes out. Okay, that's where it comes from, right? So we're opening the vent so that stuff can get out. And so sure, you might need that. Safest place to vent is to come to me, okay? Because then I'm not going to think of anybody based on whatever you say. Keeping Shabbat when you're not in your house. First of all, like almost anything in life, it's gonna work best if you're planning for it before you get there. Okay, so if you know you're traveling and you're not gonna be home and it's gonna be Shabbat, You're either going to be, let's say, at a hotel or a resort or wherever you're going to be like that, or you're going to be at a friend's house or something, or you're going to be at a family's house. Wherever you're going to be, you need to already know in advance that you have to plan for the Shabbat, which means that if you're going to be in somebody's house, they need to know what you will and will not be doing that day. All right? My mother does the same thing, planning when she comes to visit me. She doesn't want to end up here. She doesn't want to sit around by herself when I'm here all day. So she doesn't come and visit on Saturday. She'll come during the week if she's going to come, and then she goes home. She's not going to come over a Saturday knowing full well I'm going to be here all day, period, right? But it still has you as the personality. It's still you forming yourself into him, okay? So the answer to the question is, first, you have to see yourself, which is part of the journey. You have to look in that mirror and actually recognize exactly who and what you are and what you're struggling against and what the fight really is. Then you have to have, like you said, an image of him, compare the two, and start moving towards the image of him. And as you do, you'll start to see him in you when you start recognizing, wow, I didn't used to do these things. Now I do them. That's him. I didn't used to think this way. Now I do. That's him. I didn't used to, right? All these things, that's where you start to see him in you. The more now that you can recognize him in you, you now know what to look for in somebody else because you know what it looks like now. I used an analogy with an umbrella and rain, okay? Now, when your husband is covering you properly, you're not getting wet. If you start getting wet, then you need to then consider going above and asking for help on how to work together and get some counsel. I'm not going to usurp your husband, but then you're saying, Rabbi, I'm trying to submit to my husband. Right now I'm getting rained on. Okay? And hopefully you talk to your husband about it first, and then whatever didn't work out, and maybe you recommend that he go talk to me, and if he doesn't do that, then I can possibly get involved and encourage something to go on with that. But as long as you're dry, you stay under that covering and you follow your husband how he needs to go. Is that a good picture?
Yeah.
Okay? But don't come to the ministry expecting me to usurp. I'm not usurping anybody's husband. Not happening.
Okay, from Jennifer says, question, when we struggle sometimes, does it mean we are growing?
I don't know, maybe. What it means is that's an area that you need to grow in. Okay? Anywhere you're struggling is an area that needs growth so that you no longer struggle. Okay, so it's an area, I don't want to sound mainstream by calling it a stronghold, because that's like a word that just evokes all of that junk. But it's an area that you've got, an embedded, solidly triggered or behavioral pattern that needs to be worked on, and you struggle because it still works so easily on autopilot that changing it is hard. Excuse me. So my answer would be it's an area that needs growth, not a proof of it that it's an area that you're growing in. The bar and bat mitzvah simply means son or daughter of the mitzvot, of the commandments, okay? Which in the Jewish community was symbolic of you now being of age to be an adult in standing function in the community. Not an adult like age 20 type of thing, but you should now be included and looked at as one that would be of an age to function in an adult way. Our 13-year-olds are not able to do that. We have totally, gone backwards in terms of our children maturing at older and older ages. I mean, we got, 30-year-old children now, okay? Whereas, children at 13 were, tending the flock, they were handling the crops, they were building and fishing and doing whatever. I mean, they were doing everything that an adult would be doing.